Chubb is proud to provide major funding for Antiques Roadshow. With more than a century of experience insuring art and antiques, we can protect your family heirlooms and your newly discovered treasures. It's coverage beyond your expectations.
Additional funding for this program is provided by First Union, for an experienced partner through the twists and turns of the financial world. There's the mountain called First Union.
And by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Being the producer of the Antiques Roadshow is a tremendous job. I get to see all of the wonderful people that make America terrific, and I get to see the diversity through their objects. And I get to learn about the craftspeople who created these objects. It's a wonderful way to learn about American history. And I can't think of another job that actually can do this.
I think the appeal of the show has to do with people learning about these objects and that they really are a window into the past.
One of the things I find most exciting about being on the Roadshow is even after 30 years in the business, I see things that I've never seen before.
And you had it signed by John Glenn and Scott Carpenter, and it's just a magnificent piece, and you were one of the very few people who were able to do this.
The Antiques Roadshow has been, for me, an incredible experience. It's sometimes exhausting, but it is always exhilarating.
In terms of value, even with the cracks, this is worth about $15,000.
Oh my!
This one didn't fire.
If we do it right, we hopefully make history come alive.
Silversmith, a very rare, highly regarded Philadelphia silversmith who made this tankard about 1710.
There are wonderful moments in my job, and one of those moments are when an appraiser calls me over and they truly have something that is just so special.
When you see something great come into the Antiques Roadshow, the whole place just stops. And usually somebody sees it before somebody else, and hopefully that's you.
Century, you know, middle part of the 19th century, pardon me, maybe 1850s, 1860s.
The late 1800s, I think.
I can feel sort of a smile come over my body. I'm just so excited to be able to see this wonderful object, and I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Thank you.
I am so proud to be able to tell you that this is an original Civil War flag, 34 states, made out of silk.
I can see them. I can see the fire in their eyes. I can see their hands moving a mile a minute. I can see everything that they do to convince me that don't miss this one, Aida. This one has to go to television. They're great moments.
Well, I think one in this state, fresh to the market, I think we could probably expect something in the region of $15,000.
Oh my God! One like this just recently sold at auction, and it brought $11,500.
It's worth, in this kind of condition, about $3,000 to $4,000.
This bear could easily bring $7,000 to $8,000.
Oh my God!
$7,000 and $10,000.
Oh my God! How much?
$3,000 to $4,000.
Is that right?
You're kidding.
Oh, really?
Oh my God! Yikes!
Excuse me?
Get out of here!
That's American money. Holy smokes.
Wow.
I'm glad to hear it because I need a new car.
In today's market, I could see this doing at auction $25,000 to $30,000.
You gotta be kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. That's why I said.
I almost threw this away.
Well, I'm really glad you came from Cleveland. I really
gotta call my wife.
I have to tell you, I was quite surprised when you pulled it out of the bag nonchalantly. a little while ago. Can you tell me anything about where this came from, how you got it?
Well, I have to say, we were so embarrassed on the way up here because we kept going, well, we don't know anything about it. What are we going to say? Should we even bring it? So we didn't even know if we were going to bring it. And Grandpa bought it at the flea market, what, about?
I'd say 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Bought it at a flea market here in California.
Yeah, in San Jose. He went every Sunday, as long as I can remember, and went to the flea market every morning.
Well, what you have here, what your grandfather found, is an exceptionally rare Eskimo hunting helmet.
Oh, can I interject something here? This is really wonderful because my father went to Alaska when he was a young person, I would say 16, 17 years old, and always had an interest in Alaska and suspected that this might have come from the Aleutians or something like that.
Well, it actually comes from an area just south of the Aleutian Islands. There are, in fact, less than 25 of these known to exist in the world today. Coincidentally, there have been, in the 22 years I've been in business, 4 of these in the marketplace. These were very magical objects to an American Indian, to the Eskimo people. They were used when they were hunting out in the ocean, the Arctic Ocean, to hunt sea mammals, and they imbued tremendous spirituality and spirit in these helmets, and they were actually made to sort of replicate the animals that they were going to be hunting. This object is made from a single piece of wood that is quite miraculously split, steamed and bent, and then sewn with sinew, and then decorated with ivory, showing animal figures here. And here we have little Russian trade bead eyes insert into the middle. It has a little condition problems. It's missing a few things. However, given how rare this object is, in the last year, there have been 2 of these sold at public auction. There was one in Phillips in London. There was another example in June in Massachusetts that my gallery purchased. We purchased the example for $66,000 American dollars. We were the underbidder at $140,000 American. This example needs a little restoration.
It has Scotch tape on it.
I noticed that somebody's done quite a restoration job with Scotch tape here.
That's Grandpa.
It obviously
That was
holds
Grandpa.
a high position in your house. With restoration, I would anticipate the retail value that we would ask in our gallery is in the neighborhood of $65,000 to $75,000.
Well, that's wonderful. And I do have to ask you, how old is this? I maybe
This is
missed
from
it.
very early in the 19th century,
Oh my God.
perhaps 1820.
We almost decided to go home before even showing you this.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Well, I understand you had an interesting doll today, too, so you've had a very good day.
We have had a very good day.
Congratulations.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Oh, Donald, thank you. Oh my God.
But we can tell that this is handmade from the dovetails and the workmanship here. But
so I can help you
the
next.
interesting thing is this.
Okay, all right.
And this is in fact a pagoda. And it is
There's such a tremendous adrenaline rush when you see something wonderful. And I had that feeling particularly in Pittsburgh because one of the first things that I saw early in that morning was this incredible dome-top Pennsylvania German box. I'd never seen one that size before. I'd never seen one in that kind of condition. And I'm somebody who has spent the last 30 years involved in appraising antiques, and I love this material. Well, it's one of the greatest of its type that I've seen. You're quite right. It comes from southeastern Pennsylvania, which was one of the primary areas that people emigrated to through the 19th century. It was either a trinket or document box. It's a full-blown example of all of the great qualities of Pennsylvania German artwork. These designs that we see on the box and on the side as well are actually drawn with a compass, and the compass is used to create these interlacing circles which then turn into flowers and then into star devices. And if you look very closely, you can see that there are actually some compass points where the compass was sort of pressed into this soft wood, which is actually tulip poplar. The inside of the box, which is accessed through this tin hasp, is fascinating because it's really a piece of American history. At some point, the wood began to shrink, which meant that these pieces of wood began to get narrower, and there were spaces that started to form in the lid of the box, and then this was mended or kept together with pieces of Pennsylvania German homespun. So you can see that it was repaired by the Pennsylvania Germans. And it is in incredible condition. The paint surface is beautiful. As you can see, it has a sort of sea green ground with this crisp red and white, perfectly drawn, precise decoration covering the entire surface of the box. And I have to tell you that in terms of the auction value of this piece, small ones tend to sell for $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 and $10,000. This, because of its size, the state of preservation, and the beauty of its decoration, would probably be worth somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000.
Wow.
So I am really thrilled.
I'm afraid to carry it. Oh,
now you have to drive really carefully home.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's a wonderful thing, and I'm delighted to have seen it.
Thank you
so much.
Wow.
But you should have the other two pieces checked, just to be careful. But your grandmother left you something very nice, as well as the photo album. I think that's wonderful.
When I get lucky, I get very ecstatic. I get excited. I'm in the business for a very long time, and I still get excited when I see pretty stones, because all my life I enjoyed pretty stones.
Well, it belonged to my great aunt, and her husband was a congressman. They had no children, and he spoiled her with jewels.
He certainly did. Now, roughly, when was he a congressman? What years?
Mid to late 20s, so maybe 27.
Okay. Now, what you have here is deco, and this is earlier. The cut of the diamonds. These are two pear-shaped diamonds. The large one is 2.5 carats, and the smaller one is 1.5 carats. And a minor detail on that is the color is not as good as the other diamonds.
Right.
And how we show that is on this particular diamond. If you put the diamond next to the other diamond, you can see that the diamond in the ring is much whiter.
Right.
So that makes it more expensive. But the interesting part about this deco ring, diamond ring, where the diamond is roughly about 3 carats, and the ruby is about 2.5 carats. These are large stones. The natural Burmese ruby comes from Burma. It's an old stone, so it hasn't been color enhanced, hasn't been any way treated. So the ring was also made roughly around the Deco period, 1925. Everybody had money, and they spent it, and they made the best. There's no maker's mark in the ring, but it's strictly a very good jeweler, probably in New York City, who made that ring. Now we get to the pièce de résistance, the diamond and ruby bracelet. And the ruby, the center stone, is 3.5 carats. You say she took some out?
Yes, 9 more. It was
9
reduced
more.
in size to fit her
so
wrist.
that comes to a total of 31 rubies. Those weigh 27 carats. You have 70 baguette diamonds and 144 round diamonds. And that comes to close to 15 carats of diamonds. So everything is continually multiplying. These rubies also are Burma quality. The ones in the small ones are a little better than the center one. The center one has a tiny bit of white in it, which is very, very small, but still, as far as a ruby goes, they are quite rare today. And the make on the platinum was excellent. To give you a rough idea what this whole thing is worth, the pendant is worth somewhere around $12,000. The two diamonds, they're off color. The ring with the fine ruby and the very, very white diamond, that's roughly about $80,000. Wait, you haven't heard anything yet. Now, your rubies in here are magnificent. They're better quality than the center stone. With the rubies and the diamonds, your bracelet is worth $165,000.
I never thought it would be that much.
Well, what you have here is a group of people, money, I'm not saying money didn't mean anything, but they had it and they spent it. And they would go to the store and buy the best they can. The three pieces together in today's market is worth somewhere about $257,000 in that area.
Wow.
So, do you ever wear any of these?
I wear this on occasion, and most people never pay attention to it. And my mother has worn these, and people would say, "Why are you wearing that tacky costume jewelry?"
I love it. That's what everybody should think. But enjoy it because it is magnificent.
Thank you.
I really like it. It's got vestiges of the original tape. You've done a nice job with the way you've mounted it. Did you have it done?
I made the case for it myself.
Oh, you made the case
right.
yourself? It's great. I didn't expect to see anything like this.
Would you mind telling me what you paid for it?
I paid $135.
Would you be happy to know that it's worth about $3,000 to $4,000 on today's market?
Yes, I would.
You have a very, very lovely piece. Thank you for bringing it in.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
What can you tell me a little bit about this jug?
I acquired this jug 8 or 9 years ago. I just happened to stop by I think it was a Shriner's garage sale where people had donated items. And this was sitting kind of off to the side with a little bee sting crock about this big. And nobody was paying too much attention to them, and I kind of thought, this thing is ugly, but it's unique. And so I made him an offer on the two pieces and took it home.
You did see a yard sale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, I've never been to a yard sale like that before.
Well,
At any rate, this is truly extraordinary. Number one, it's, I think, a presentation piece. This must have been used in a situation where there were any number of people at a gathering, a large meeting, a big event. It was meant to be conspicuously placed in the room, and its capacity, which is marked by 2 Roman numerals up here, is, believe it or not, 20 gallons.
that's what I thought that might mean.
It's huge. But in addition to being big, it's extraordinary, I think, for a number of reasons. Its form is relatively early. I would date this sometime after 1860, probably. It certainly is made in the Pennsylvania-Ohio tradition, the use of blue slip glaze here, but then this Albany slip glaze, and then the application of these decorative elements along with this amazing sort of coleslaw mustache and beard and eyebrows. These are all things that you'll see in this particular part of the country, maybe central United States, western. We could discuss it a bit from top to bottom. These lizards, and I'll turn this around a bit, are beautifully figured. The tails, everything about it. And they're symmetrically arranged on the jug with this very dramatic portrait of a black man. The fascinating thing about it, this black man has blue eyes. You can see there's just a touch of blue in his pupils there. But then this dramatic application, as we say, of the coleslaw, eyebrows, mustache, beard, and all of it, it makes for a very exciting portrait of a man. In addition to that, they hadn't gone far enough with this thing. Where the spigot was down here, they have this turtle on the surface of the piece. The fact that some might say, well, look, it's got a great big chip. I don't think it means any bit of difference whatsoever. And there are some hairline cracks, but overall, it's in fantastic condition. It made my heart beat when I saw this. I'm not telling you. It's just great. In all my years of working in the auction business, I never saw a piece to rival it. And it's a little difficult under these circumstances to estimate the value. So inevitably, I ask myself a question, what would you pay? And it's the sort of thing, if I were in a position of buying such a piece, I think one would easily say, sure, I'll pay. And, well, why don't you fill in the figure? Get any ideas?
Oh, I'll tell you what I paid for it.
All right, let's go there first.
The 2 crocks together, I just made a bid. I said I would give them $50.
50.
And that's what I took them home for.
Very good.
The little crock, the other one I sold for $52.50. So I've made $250, and this is still got this.
I think it's a wise move. Well, anyway, we had a little confab here among several experts that are kind enough to assist me in looking at this piece, and it's a little difficult to come up with a consensus, but I think, honestly, I think easily the jug is probably worth in the area of, what, $30,000 to $50,000
oh my gosh.
Or more. It's extraordinary.
sorry.
And I think the top side of the estimate, I don't think that I'm being aggressive with the estimate. I think it's easily worth that kind of money. It's just, it's an extraordinary thing, and I'm so happy I got a chance to praise it.
I'm floored.
It's a pretty good buy, I'd say, too.
Yeah, I don't have anything in it. So. Gee whiz.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Yes! Oh, this is my 15 minutes of fame. Oh, man. $30,000. I'm thinking 5 tops.
Another special day that I remember very, very vividly was Secaucus, New Jersey, and a special table came into that site.
I mean, I'll never forget when Claire brought her Seymour table in, and we saw the draped bellflowers, saw the satinwood husks in the feet, and it immediately said Seymour. It was just incredible. Because we didn't want to give away to Claire, to this woman who had brought this in, what we thought about it. You know, you had to, but that's pretty hard to do, but I think we did it. I don't think she had an inkling of quite how excited we were until the taping started a bit later. You know, we're trying to kind of contain ourselves, you know, and Leslie, but we felt like jumping up and down.
What's up here?
I just want to say, when we first saw you, my heart started going like this. Feel it, you can feel it right now. Watch. It's going bump, bump, bump. And mine did too. Leslie looked over and said, Lee, is that what I think it is? And as we got closer, you had this upside down, and we saw that label. And Les went up to the label and went and he said, "It isn't, is it?" And I said, "It is." Really is. And so it's really one of the most exciting moments I've ever had. Les?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most exciting pieces I've ever seen.
Just to be here with this.
Yeah.
Now, do you have an idea of what it's worth, or have you gotten some idea?
Oh, probably 20,000. Now, I just said that.
40,000. Well, I think the estimate we're going to give you is going to top that.
Oh, yes.
I think Les and I both feel that this piece in the open marketplace on a good day,
for the reasons we talked
about, it's a 10 in all the areas because it's labeled, because it has the inlay, because of the surface. It would be in the range of about $200,000 to $225,000.
Wow.
Okay? Now, 25,000. Now I want to say that on a very good day with everything in place, it has the possibility of bringing 300,000. I don't want to get your hopes up that much, but 225 isn't bad, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is better than hitting the lottery because money is just money, and this is a beautiful piece.
We want to thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for everything. Okay.
Yes. Are you writing all this down so I can remember?
Yes.
I was back at the office several weeks later, and I had a message that said, Claire called with a New Jersey phone number. And I'll never forget it. And I couldn't get to the phone fast enough. And Claire said, I want to sell the table at auction. Come pick it up.
Lot number 1440, the Federal Mahogany card table labeled by John Seymour and Son. And I have a $100,000 bid to start it now, bidding at 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. I have 140,000, standing on my left now at 140, 150, 160, 70, 180, 90, 190, 200, 210,000, 220,000, 230,000, 240,000, 250,000, 260,000, 70,000, 280,000, 90,000, 300,000, 110, 120, 30, 130, 140, 50, 150, 160, 70, 180,000, 90,000, 400,000, 410, 420, 30, 430, 440, 450, 460, 70. 470's against you. Why not? 475,000. 480. At 480,000. The bid is right front now, 480,000. I have $480,000 then, 485,000. 490,000. At $490,000 then, still on the right side, and down it goes, where you called it at $490,000. Sold for $490,000. Thank you, Brett. Thank you.
was May 1993 that I was asked to go to England and to observe the British Antiques Roadshow, which had been in existence for 17 years. And the objective was to go, observe, see, and bring back the information whether or not we could do it here in America. And obviously, the answer was yes.
This was a very famous regiment during the Civil War, and
The first order of business was to get talent. The talent, of course, are the appraisers, and we had to convince the auction houses for which they worked and the independents that this was a worthy cause for them to get involved in.
And you have no idea what it is, you know? Well, it's actually a wonderful piece of German pottery from around the turn of the century.
The first time I heard about the Antiques Roadshow was when Aida Moreno, the executive producer, came into Sotheby's in January 1996. And we had the Adolf Meyer collection on view at our galleries. And here was the crown jewel, the block and shell Townsend knee-hole dressing table, one of the masterpieces in the collection. And Aida said, "You've got 2 minutes to talk about this piece." Only 2 minutes, and she was basically, it was a rehearsal, and then and you went on for 10 minutes. And I went on for 10 minutes exactly.
1919 is exactly when these were made. It took a quick look at the numbers in here, and it's a 5,000 series. So it's.
When we first heard about the idea of a television program about appraising antiques, we were very excited about it. So we jumped on it as soon as we heard, and really have never looked back.
So the whole thing was made all in one piece. And then cobalt used to do the glaze in the background. Right, okay.
The first time I heard about the Antiques Roadshow, I got a call from one of the producers asking me to be an appraiser, and I said, well, let me get this straight. You don't pay us, we cover our own expenses, and you don't have a track record, it's not been on TV. Why would I do this? Within 5 minutes of walking into the building, we saw what was going on, and we knew it was going to be a success.
Other than that, it's in perfect condition. The paint has been redone, but when I say redone, I mean early.
It sounded exciting. It sounded challenging. And it sounded like the kind of thing that if you're in my profession, you really want to be a part of.
This is a plaster figure that was done during Victorian times, late 19th century.
I felt that somebody taught me and I should teach somebody else.
So this is a tremendously innovative age for the country, and people are coming up with all these fabulous...
Over the years of doing the show, I found that the objects were great, but I enjoyed the people so much more.
Underclothes, so we're still talking about a $3,000 to $3,500 doll. Oh my goodness.
$3,500.
And your Catacruza doll collectors would give their eye teeth to have this doll.
Traveling the Antiques Roadshow over this great nation is a logistical nightmare. You can't imagine how many moving parts there are. And we have one day to set it all up and open the doors on Saturday morning. It has to be right.
Everybody tickets.
I need a van.
I need a van.
I need a van.
Okay, we are ready. It's like building a little studio that we drag around with us, take it out of the truck, put it in, same place to put the same lights each time, and hopefully we have the same look.
Oh, please. 24 walkie-talkies.
There we go. This is 19th century piece, and if we look right down here,
One take. In the beginning, the Antiques Roadshow was a lot easier to manage because we didn't have a lot of people coming to the roadshow because no one knew who we were.
The first show, which was in Concord, Massachusetts, was obviously a learning curve for everybody that was involved.
It was really quite a shock because it was really quiet. Nobody really had ever heard of the show. And so we only had about 2 hours worth of people coming in, and we all wondered, well, is this going to be a success or not? It's a chair that was made in mahogany.
We are on the verge of calling our parents and our grandparents to get them to get them to come in. Mom and Dad, can you come in? They need people here. We need bodies, So he wanted it back. Well, it's a very nice table, Don, and you've had it in your home, enjoying it for the past.
When I saw the crowds in subsequent seasons, it was encouraging and very exciting. Clearly, the show was working.
That first show at Pittsburgh was amazing. I remember coming out of the hotel room, and I remember saying, "What are those? Those are lines. Those are lines of people." Unforgettable.
There were thousands upon thousands of people. As far as the eye could see, there was humanity. And from that point forward, my worries shifted from not getting enough to having too much. By the time I arrive on Saturday morning, there are thousands of people already waiting. Daniel, get my circle ready. I'm opening up. All right? Are you ready, Peter? And you're the first to open up the Antiques Roadshow in Milwaukee, so please go on in. May it be you. All right? The very first thing that a participant in the roadshow has to do is go to the triage table. That is a table that has a lot of generalists there. You open up your package, you show what you have, you get a ticket that now lets the specialists, the appraisers, appraise that item for you. How an object makes it to air is an interesting process. The appraiser is the one that controls all of that. And when they find something that is intriguing, they call me. George, did you call?
I did.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Come with me. Once I arrive at their table, they have seconds to convince me that this is a worthy piece to come to television.
I've never seen this before. It's got etched in the back YUCTIK, and what that means is everyone thinks it's a tourist thing, but it's from the site Tikal.
Priority number one is the story. Toys, toys. The value of that story, how they're going to put it in social context.
In the 20th century, dealers would go and they'd find a top that was compatible and put it on and make a whole highboy. They call them married highboys.
What do they know about it?
Well, they know it's Russian. In terms of value, I'm not sure. I don't think they paid anywhere near that.
Number two is what kind of a story will it be? Will it be a great discovery or will it be a disappointment, and how do we handle that?
Garage, and that's where it's at.
What attracted you to this?
I
I just thought it was a neat piece.
And number 3, obviously, there's a price. What's the price tag on this?
$3,000 to $4,000.
Okay. Once the appraiser convinces me that this is something that will go to television, and we agree, then what I do is I ask the person whether or not they want to be on television. We would love the opportunity to have Lee appraise it for you on TV. Is that all right, Doug?
Sure.
All right. Now, Doug, let me write your name here. All right. We would like the opportunity to, put it on TV.
Okay.
So far, a pretty good success rate. It's always a yes. And the object and the person are quickly whisked away into our green room, which is actually blue.
And do we have Kathy with the lamp? No.
They go through a little process of signing papers, and then they get their pictures taken with their objects. And then I think the wonderful part that they all talk about is they get all this television makeup put on them.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
That's They picked twice, and then they chose the latter of these 2 pieces to show.
Oh, okay.
And then they sit and they wait their turn.
The only thing we'll need you to do directly to the camera is just to give us your first name only and where you're from. The rest of the time.
One of the greatest joys for me to see as a producer, and I think the principal part of my job, is to make sure that everyone who is working as a team.
We're just setting up some shots. Once we do that, we'll be ready to go, okay? Thank you.
I'm going to change rails.
Then we're going to have Carney with the block front chest. Okay. And then I guess we'll do Jim with the cards.
Hey, Richard, I've got the doll stand. We'll just snap it right in there and we'll get it ready for air.
And the Antiques Roadshow is an exceptional team. We've been together, most of us, for 4.5 years. We know each other's likes and dislikes. We know how to get the show going.
Doing this now. Got them set up.
And I think the thing that really kind of makes it all work is that got an incredibly hardworking team of people who make both the guests and the appraisers and everybody else who's involved feel as though they're a part of a family.
I think it's absolutely crucial that the show continues to educate. And one of the best ways to educate is through the fakes and the forgeries that come into the show. It's important for me to make sure that people understand that they're out there and what to look for.
These handholds are a little too stiff. They're not quite the rolled, articulated ones that you saw in the book.
I don't want them to be taken. I think part of the mission of the Roadshow is to help America get a little bit smarter. I hope we're doing that.
This is supposed to be pre-Columbian. Did they tell you that?
No, they didn't tell me anything.
When you look, first of all, at the surface and you see these dog heads on human heads, that's an exaggeration. Right away, that's giving us a red flag. Okay.
If you see something that's really, really cheap, there might be a reason for it. It could be a sleeper, or it just might be something that has serious problems or is a fake.
But in fact, these things are not made of bone at all. They are made of a resin. They are a material that's a plastic. The way we see are talking about the value of these objects, and obviously a fake or forgery has no value at all, and it's important for people to know about them, how they're made, and how closely they resemble the authentic one.
A signature like that is not difficult to put on a piece of glass. And I'm afraid to tell you what we've got here. It's a piece of glass made in Czechoslovakia, which has been signed La Ligue in order to convince you or anyone else who might come across it that it's an authentic piece.
We have to remember that the viewers out there might want to know why it's a fake, so they can avoid having the same thing happen to them. So even though you have to break the news, I try to do it instructively and teach and educate.
And this is really a great example of a copy by probably an anonymous artist of a wonderful work by Raphael.
Can you tell me something about this vase and how you found it?
Well, we know it's signed Tiffany, and my husband found it, and he can tell you that little story.
Tell me that story.
Well, I went to the East Coast to see an arts and crafts show, which is a lot of Art Deco stuff. And then I took off and came across the country looking for stuff to buy. And I found this in an antique store in Colorado, and it was just marked green art glass vase. And I was attracted to it, and the price was right, so I bought it.
The lady thought it was ugly.
Oh, she did?
Yeah,
She didn't like
she
it.
didn't like green, I guess.
And how much did you pay for it?
Just under $400.
And what do you think it is?
Well, it's got a signature underneath it that says Tiffany, so I assumed that it was made by Tiffany Studios.
And you've done some research on this?
Yeah, we have an art glass book that I looked up and found out that he did sign it a number of different ways.
Right.
And Favrel is the type of glass, and then the dating system has to do with a number and a letter before or after.
Right.
And I dated it, according to that book, 1907.
Great. Well, the first thing one does, or the first thing that I do, is just look at the vase, see what the shape is, the decoration, the color. I never, ever look at a signature, ever. Anyone can add a signature to an object. When I first saw this, my initial reaction was that it is not by Tiffany.
That's fine.
That it is not old, that it was probably made in Italy. What leads me to believe that? The shape is not typical of a Tiffany shape. The glass is too thick. These little tiny flowers here are called millefioris. This is not the way Tiffany would have done it. This green is too green. Again, the glass is too thick. And it does, in fact, have a Tiffany signature on it right here. It says LC Tiffany Favrel, which, in my opinion, was added at a much later date. And this was made to deceive. These are made in Italy. We see quite many of them on the market. And I think the antique dealer who sold it as a piece of iridescent art glass was correct. That the signature is not Tiffany. It was added. Another thing that you might want to look at is the iridescence inside. This amber iridescence is not something you would find in exactly that color on a piece of Tiffany. Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Tricia, when I saw you coming in and pulling these old paintings out of your bag, I had a pretty good idea what they were, but can you tell me a little bit about them and their history since you've had them?
Well, I know very little about them. My husband purchased them over 40 years ago from an interior decorator who purchased them for him in Italy. As far as he can recall, he paid about $3,000 or $4,000 for them. They are not signed.
Were they ever referred to as by a certain artist or any name of an artist associated with these at all?
Not that we know of, no.
You ever have them appraised by anyone?
Not that I'm aware of.
So never came across any names, just Italian or something like that?
No.
Well, these are kind of old. You can see this nice old canvas, fraying away here. And they are indeed Italian. And they're very close to the work of a couple of Italian artists. One by the name of Marco Ricci and the other by the name of Francesco Zuccarelli. And Zuccarelli and Ricci specialized in this sort of scene, this pastoral scene with these people frolicking in the landscape. And this one we have little fishermen. And they're very decorative sort of panels. They're fairly highly sought after. A couple of pair of Zuccarelli paintings that were larger, recently made about $200,000. These are a little bit different. They aren't Zuccarelli, they aren't Ricci, and in fact they aren't really that old.
Oh.
Okay, what they are more modern copies, probably not older than you or I. Probably made just around the time that your husband's decorator received them.
Really?
And this is often very common that decorators have these. They're very decorative pieces and they sell them.
Right.
But they're modern copies, made in the manner of Ricci, made in the manner of Zuccarelli, but done recently and intended to look a little bit older than they are. If you look at them, they're on a very rough canvas here. I think I can show you this. You can see the rough canvas here.
Yes.
And it's a rough weave like an old canvas, but it's not. It's not that old. You can see the age on it. Secondly, the stretchers are very new. You can see these are machine sawn stretchers. And then the main thing about it is this made in Italy on the back. And that couldn't have been on there before 1890s. And the stamp was probably only about 50 years old. Now, one of the things that's very clever about these is they look very old. They make them to look very old. They put a varnish on these, a very dirty varnish, so they look like an old 18th century painting. And then the funny thing they do is they take them, they put them in an oven, and they bake them. And you get this craquelure here, which looks like an old craquelure that you expect after hundreds of years, but it's actually a forced craquelure, and it's merely decorative, not the real thing, and unfortunately worth about $500 or $700 for the pair.
How very sad, but thank you very much.
Okay.
At least now I know.
That's right. Thank you.
The reason I picked this piece is because I've seen a lot of this kind of thing going around the country right now. And they are not American Indian. They're made to sell. They've been making these for at least 15 years that I know of, maybe longer. What it's supposed to be is an arrow quiver. And the first thing that gives it away is if you look at the string along the edge, it appears to be animal sinew, but in fact it's a real high-tech nylon. And it actually spreads a lot like sinew, and it's used a lot in making these reproductions. The second thing is the hide that's used on here is commercially tanned and not Indian tanned, using brains and liver and so forth. The next thing that caught my attention are these little cones, these metal cones. They've been aged and patinated out with an artificial patina that's much older than the rest of the piece. The next thing is the average quiver is a third again longer than this and sometimes longer than that, because arrows were hard to make, so they were fully protected. So the quiver would have been, at least 2.5 to 3 feet long. Quivers had very wide straps because they had to be carried a long distance. So this little string would have dug into your shoulder, and it would have a wide strap as opposed to this narrow one. And it would not have claws in the carrying strap. It would have been a very plain strap. I would guess this to have been made in the last 15 years. I suspect it was made by a craftsman here in Texas. However, there is a catalog that comes out of the upper Midwest that actually lists these different items for sale, and they're being sold right and left as authentic American Indian pieces. As a decorator item, especially with this beautiful case you've had made for it, it's worth a minimum of several $100s, probably $350 up. I'm sorry for the news, but I appreciate you bringing it in today to show us, because it informs everyone else what's happening in this market.
Photographic reproduction. This is actually rather nice. And this, in fact, was done about 1910 by the Adachi Company.
We had bought a picture at a yard sale, and we had had it for a couple of years, and I decided I wanted to use the frame for something else, so I began to take it apart, and this was behind it.
Well, when you showed me this, immediately I saw the name Paul Revere here, and then Joseph Warren here. How did those names strike you when you saw this?
Well, I wasn't much into history when I was in school, so I learned a lot more about it when we came across this document. And we got some books and stuff from the library, and we learned how important he was during this time.
Right. Joseph Warren was Dr. Joseph Warren, who was killed at Bunker's Hill. And he was one of the great Boston leaders in the early unpleasantries in the revolt against England. This reads that it was done in Cambridge on the 29th of January, 1775, and it's a pass. And it was given to Paul Revere to get him through the military lines when he was carrying messages. A lot of these kinds of documents were reproduced in the late 19th century by historical societies. But then this one was all stained. And I thought, that's strange. Usually they're clean and they're newer looking. And the rough edges, although that looks like it's sort of a manufactured antique, it could have been eaten away by bugs behind this particular backing that was on the picture you bought. So what I did is I looked at it with this magnifying glass. It's a 30 power magnifying glass to see if this was printed writing or whether it was manuscript writing.
Oh, okay.
And what I found out as I looked through this is that not only is the writing printed, but also even the stains on this is a printed stain, and you can see a pattern in that.
Oh, really?
And so that's the way you would look at a document like this and tell. So we can probably assume that it was a manufactured piece done around the 1940s. Based on that information, do you have any idea of the value of this?
We had no idea at all.
Right. Well, if it was original, it would be worth probably $50,000,
Wow.
you know. But as it is, it's probably worth $20 or something like that.
Our obligation is to the public, really is, to help educate them and understand that they have to be careful when they're out there spending money on antiques.
I have seen the most bizarre things. A man who had grown a potato in his backyard that had the profile of Richard Nixon, and he dressed it up in a little red, white, and blue suit in a shoebox and brought it in and said, "Mr. Potato Head is worth a lot of money from the 1950s. What is my Mr. Potato Head worth?" Well, really, what can you say to that? It's priceless.
We sometimes shoot several segments on the Antiques Roadshow that never appear on air. And it's curious, really, because sometimes you think, well, that was a great segment. I learned a lot, the couple learned a lot, it was a great object. But I also recognize that the furniture table is not the only table there, and there are so many collecting fields there that we not only have to promote our furniture, but we have to compete with the collectible guys and gals and the paintings folks, and so we're just one of 30 or 40 different collecting areas. So I guess that's why we don't always see our segments. But we get enough. I'm not complaining.
Collected fishing tackle for a number of years.
Okay.
And kind of progressed into the ice fishing decoys. I just love the folk art form of them.
Right, so where did you find the decoy, actually?
The large one was actually purchased at an auction by my wife and then given to me for Christmas.
Okay.
And the smaller ones, one was a gift from my mother, and the other one I picked up at a tag sale in Connecticut, actually.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say there's a whole group of people that collect fish decoys, and these were used for ice fishing, basically. And basically, the fishermen would go out and drill the large hole and let these decoys down through the ice, and they would just dangle there in the water. And then fish would come up. This is probably a pike, I guess, would you say?
Or maybe a muskie.
Maybe a muskie, a big fish. Really mean-looking teeth, nice brass tack. But to a big fish coming along, a muskie or a pike, he might say, "Hey, it looks pretty safe over there. You know, look at that. That fish is hanging out, and so I can too." And then you hope that once the fish get in there, if you're the fisherman, that you gaff it or
spear them,
jig it or spear them.
Yep.
It's one of the biggest folk art decoys that I've seen. It has its original paint, these wonderful spots, the original tin, and you could see these 3 holes, and that's what they, of course, hung it from. And it's just a really nice, powerful decoy, okay? The other 2 that you brought in are nice small examples, and these would have been probably simulating either trout or some kind of a, would you say a
perch, maybe?
Perch. This looks like a perch here. And they have nice original paint with the dots and the green, and generally to collectors, the ones that bring them more money are ones that are curved or that have really nice paint, I think, like this nice striping. So these are fun.
I used to have them hanging all around the house.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, actually, Todd, what you brought in are some decoys. Probably this one probably worth around $250 to $300, $250 in that range. This one about the same because they have nice paint.
Right.
They're nice examples. And this, because of the paint, because of the original tin, because of that great kind of Jaws expression in the front, you know, it's kind of scary looking, right? And just because it has this nice tail bend, this would be worth upwards of about $2,000 retail.
Wow, my wife will be very pleased.
But what did she pay for it?
$100.
$100.
$100.
At a public auction?
At a public auction.
Well, she did a great job.
I'm very happy.
But thanks for bringing in
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to go fishing now. I'm going to take it with me, mister. It's not cold enough yet. Sorry. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Now, Candy, are you a bear collector?
No, I'm not.
No? Well, tell me a little bit about this bear.
Well, this is Tricky, and I got him when I was 5 years old for my 5th birthday. My mom took me down to the Santa Ana bookstore. The toy store was downstairs, and she told me I could pick out whatever I wanted within reason. And she said, well, that's a good choice. And
do you remember what she paid for it at the time?
I think she paid $20, which was quite a bit for that
at that point.
time.
Yeah. Now, did you play with him a lot?
Yeah, I played with him, but I was very careful with him.
Well, what I want to point out is excellent condition. The entire outfit, the front and the back, has remained. So what's nice is that you've kept him out of direct sunlight, which is good, which is a great thing to do. Also, you really kept his clothes intact, which you normally don't see these bears like that. Now, this is produced by Schuco. And Schuco's a German company that started producing toys around 1912 in Nuremberg, Germany. And what's wonderful about this bear that I love is this little feature of the yes, no bear. And this is done by manipulating the tail right here, and you can see that he indicates yes and no.
Yes.
Now, that's really nice, but the other nice thing, besides the condition and also the yes-no aspect, is this tag here that we have, the Schuco Tricky tag. Now, sometimes you do see them with that little red tag that we have here, but when I turn this over, what's nice is that it says that it's made in U.S. Zone, Germany.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Gives us a wonderful time period, which makes it a little bit older than I thought it was. Because Schuco produced a number of cars and wind-up toys, but their yes-no animals were produced primarily in the 50s, but this one I think is earlier because it has that U.S. Zone Germany tag, which is really nice. Now, they did a variety of sizes actually, and a variety of animals. There was also a monkey that's yes, no. There were, I think, 3 different animals and then 3 different sizes because they also came very small too, which is really nice. Now, the other feature on this that really points out that it is a Schuco, and this is normally damaged, is you can see the cardboard. You can see it's starting to come out a little bit.
Yeah.
So you want to be careful about that because moths will go for the felt here very quickly. So you do want to be careful on how you store it and keep it out of direct sunlight. You can see that it does have the cardboard legs. With all of this intact, especially in this condition, I would estimate the piece in the $800 to $1,200 range.
I had no idea.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he agrees. And that's a wonderful thing. Well, thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for coming in today. You've got an interesting group of documents. Can you tell me a little about how you came to have them and the history of them?
Yes, fortunately these were saved in the family by my aunt. These are my certificates from the West Point from my great-grandfather going up through his military career.
Well, they're more than just certificates. They're a great group of promotion documents and graduation certificate here. But what I find most interesting is that we have no less than 5 different presidential appointments here. Beginning with, of course, this was the certificate for your relative. His name was James Caldwell. His first presidential signature after his graduation was signed by Franklin Pierce. This was when he was appointed a 2nd lieutenant. We have another one here. This is his first lieutenant's appointment, signed by James K. Polk in 1848, now when I guess he went off to serve in the Mexican War. We have another one here, signed I believe in 1851 by President Millard Fillmore. And of course the best one that you got here, the creme de la creme, is signed by Abraham Lincoln as President of the United States during the Civil War.
I was curious if that was the actual signature, you know.
Yeah, there's no question that it is. Now, in terms of Lincoln documents, you've got to understand that probably one day a week, Lincoln sat at his desk in the White House and signed dozens of these things. They're still very collectible, though, and very desirable among collectors. It's a nice, strong signature, and it's a little bit different because many of his documents he signed as A. Lincoln. This one signed as Abraham Lincoln. We have another document, his post-war document, signed by Andrew Johnson, who was, of course, the president after Lincoln was assassinated. So together, it's a really nice group of documents covering a guy's 20-plus year military history. Do you have any idea what this group of documents might be worth?
No, I have no idea at all.
Well, I'll tell you, in terms of the value of the presidential signatures and the condition of the documents, my guess is that they're probably worth somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000 for the group.
Very, very surprising.
Well, thanks for coming in today. It was great having you here.
Well, glad to come to the Roadshow here.
Great.
Phil, you were telling me that you found this candle stand and it started you on the road to being an antique collector.
It certainly did.
Tell me how you found it.
Well, my wife and I went out last year actually to a tag sale in our area. We happened upon it early in the morning, and I saw a couple old chairs and a table and some other things that I ended up buying, so much so that I couldn't fit it all in the car. I had to go home and then come back again. And this piece was still there later in the day, and I didn't know much about it other than it seemed old to me, so I decided to go ahead and buy it.
And what were they asking for it?
They were asking $100, but since I'd bought so much other stuff there, I offered $65 and they accepted it. After I bought it, I didn't even know what it was, did research, and turns out it's a candle stand, and everything about it I liked, the color especially, but the legs told me, the curved legs suggested that it was from the Connecticut River Valley, and that really interested me.
And you found a similar stand in some of the Israel Sack books on the literature of the subject, is that right?
That's right. One that was defined as in superior condition with the same type of legs as mine, so that's why I wanted to bring it here and hoped that it was similarly special.
Let me tell you a little story. A couple of years ago, we too thought that these were Connecticut River Valley, and that was the general term for all of the cherry wood pieces that were discovered in that area with the hook on the leg. And yet, a great discovery was made a few years ago, and an article was published by Brock Jobe and Clark Pierce on a cabinet maker from Sutton, Massachusetts, named Nathan Lombard.
Nathan Lombard, okay.
Nathan Lombard's work, he worked in cherry wood. He worked with a column like this, a large urn, this hook on the leg that you see here.
Okay.
Very typical of his style that he loved to work in. The rectangular top with, as you can see here, a circular inlaid piece here. He loved the contrast between rectangle and circles.
Okay.
And that's very typical of his work.
Interesting.
Because we know who made the piece, because we know where it came from, the value of this piece is actually $10,000 to $15,000.
Wow. Holy cow.
So
I can't believe it.
It's an exciting piece.
Wow.
We're learning a lot more about him. The research is being done as we speak.
Cow.
But
That's great.
It's a great piece. It's an exciting piece. And for all of us in the antique world, it just shows you that just because the literature says one thing, we're learning things every day. And so you have to sort of keep up on the literature. And congratulations on a great discovery.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Wow.
They said it was a game ball, so I don't know if it's...
I get a lot of kids who come to my table at the Antiques Roadshow, and they're so passionate about what they bring.
Because so many young people were watching the Antiques Roadshow, I thought it was important, and that we should try at least, to do something that was generated specifically for them.
It just was basically the Antiques Roadshow for grown-ups, but instead of having grown-ups bring in their antiques and collectibles to have appraised, kids would bring them in.
It was a wonderful moment in Richmond, Virginia, when we saw a line of children and young adults come to the roadshow, willing, eager, and able to tell these stories to the appraisers.
When we were in Richmond and doing the Antiques Roadshow Junior, there was a girl who I did an on-air interview with who had a little game of golf, and it had a rare golf ball in it. And she clearly did not understand what $300 to $500 meant. Any object of money, $5 or $500, was pretty much the same to her. What is this for?
Golf.
Golf. And where did you get this?
From my great-great-great-granddaddy, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you play golf?
Sometimes when I'm with my cousin, sometimes at putt-putt.
Putt-putt. So this is really special to you, right? Because it's something that you do. What do you like the best about golf?
Getting hole-in-one.
A hole-in-one. Well, what you have is a little set, and you have different markers which set up all of the different holes from 1 to 12, and a little flag, and it is portable. So just the way you brought it to me, like a little lunchbox, is the way someone would have brought it if they had it around the turn of the century. Well, you got a couple really neat things here that I wanted to talk about, and one of them was these balls. Did you know those balls were special?
Well, kind of.
Okay, well, this ball is made of a special rubber called gutta percha. Can you say that?
Gutta percha.
Oh, very good. You probably knew that already. And this ball is a little later, and this is made of gutta percha and rubber elastic on the outside. But what's so special about these balls is this ball is a Varden. Well, there was a man named Harry Varden who was a very famous golf player in the 1890s. He won some of the biggest British and U.S. Opens. He won the Chicago U.S. Open in 1906. And he was so famous that people asked him to put his name on balls and on clubs. And this kind of gutta percha ball is called the bramble ball because it's molded on the outside with all of these brambles. And this ball is what we really look at when we go play ball today. We see more of this type of ball. But this kind of very early ball was probably made in 1890. That was a long time ago. Do you have any idea what something like that might be worth, that kind of ball?
$60.
$60. Well, $60 is a lot of money, right? Because you only get, what, $5 when your tooth came out, right? Well, I want to tell you that that ball alone is worth about $600. So this is worth more than everything else that you have here. This is worth about $100, but this one ball is worth 5 times what this all is worth. Can you believe it? Just one ball can be worth so much money?
Kind of.
Kind of. I do. Thank you, Allie, for coming in.
Have you ever gone to an antique show to see what antique dollhouse furniture is worth? Okay, well actually your house is not all that valuable.
You ever been on an airplane?
Yes, sir, once.
Well, bigger than this, do you think?
Much bigger than this.
Much bigger. Well, in its day, which roughly is around the early 1950s, this was like a huge, huge airplane. This kind of plane developed after World War II. And airplanes have always been popular with kids, you know, ever since the Wright brothers and Lindbergh and all the other famous flyers. So after the war, the Japanese developed a very nice toy industry, and they made an awful lot of battery toys, which is what your plane is powered by. So you've tried it out. Does it run okay?
It runs perfect.
Looked pretty good?
Yeah.
It was your dad's?
It was my dad's when he was a little boy.
Well, he took pretty good care of it. Let's take a look here. I wanted to show you where the company name was. Down here it is. See that? That stands for a toy company. The name was Yone, Y-O-N-E. These are called tin toys and battery operated, like I said. And your airplane does all kinds of stuff, so it's actually got 3 batteries in here.
3 batteries, right?
3 batteries. Most of these battery toys just ran on 1 or 2, but your plane is so complicated it took 3 batteries to power this thing. So the nice thing about this is that it really represents the early 1950s, a period right after the war. And these planes were really special. I mean, they carried all kinds of people, huge passenger loads. In fact, you see all the people lined up in the windows here? You know, these are little die-cut windows, and they actually only have them on one side.
Right.
This other side, they don't have the cutouts. So, you have any idea what this could be worth at this point?
No, sir.
Haven't thought about that. Well,
I've not thought about it.
okay. Well, your typical airplane would be probably half the size of this, much less in the way of detailing and everything like that.
Right.
Those kind of airplanes from the same time period, probably be $50 to $100. But you sort of have really the grand model here. You've got the super duper model, which does all kinds of things, which we're going to see in a second. So really, this airplane's about a $300 airplane today in real nice shape. That's pretty good. Who owns it, though?
Just our family.
Oh, okay. Well, joint ownership. Well, that's good. All right. Well, why don't we see what this does? Let's put her down here, and then one of you can turn on the switch, and we'll see what happens.
Turn on the switch.
Yeah. See what it does there, William. Here goes the stewardess. All right. Ready for takeoff. Closing the door.
Closing the door.
Here go our lights. There go our propellers.
It's going the wrong way.
There they go, all four of them.
All four of them are going. And
Okay,
it starts to move.
there we go. Goes even faster probably if it wouldn't be on the rug. Pretty nice toy, take good care of it.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it in.
This box was a Christmas gift to my great-great-grandmother in 1911.
And I think this toy was made in the late 20s, 1920s, which makes it about 70 years old. They're collected by doll collectors as well as train collectors.
I would be ecstatic if a child of mine became interested in antiques and in the Antiques Roadshow. It's a natural for kids because it's a way of taking objects which populate their everyday lives and putting them into a real life context.
Can you tell me how your great-great-great-grandfather knew Millard Fillmore?
He was a Secretary of the Interior in his cabinet.
One of the great things I think about the Antiques Roadshow Junior is that kids can relate to the other kids just about their antiques and collectibles and everything they're bringing in. And they also can relate with it, with what they're learning in school, to their history and their classes, and it's just easy for them to put what they're seeing on television into the context of what they're hearing at school.
We got a call from a teacher in Bronxville, New York, that was using the model Antiques Roadshow, the formula, the format, to teach her class about American history. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to see the end result of all of this, so I sent a camera crew to New York to record the process.
This semester we've been studying colonial America. The children started writing research reports, and I wanted to have a special celebration and time for them to share the reports with their parents. And when I was watching the Antiques Roadshow one day, I was realizing that when the appraisers were talking about the different antiques, they were really bringing in so much history. They were talking about who made the object and when it was made and why it was important for that particular time. Here are the antiques, so you can take an antique, and then on the antique is a name, and then you see that appraiser. We looked at the video, we talked certain comments the appraisers always seem to say, how they welcomed the person who had the antique.
Could you tell me how you came to own this object?
Well, we were walking down the street, and we just looked down, and we saw something sort of shiny in the soil, and we went, kind of dug it up a little bit.
I think what was fun about this is sort of what's fun about watching the roadshow in general, and that is there is that interest in finding out about this certain object, and then of course the anticipation of finding out the value or whether or not it's actually an original. And I think the children really took to that. For them, that was sort of exciting.
I would say that most houses of the time did not even have a door knocker. So for this to have a door knocker, actually the house is incredible. And the decoration means that it's even rarer.
There are some students that are talented in different ways. Some of them are fabulous writers, some of them are terrific artists, others are terrific on the computer. And today was really a day for those kids who love to speak to shine.
Would you like to know more about this pot?
I certainly would.
Well, I'm guessing it was made in, I'm pretty sure it was made in the 1700s by the blacksmith. Looking at this, you can't tell that this is a fake.
Did you know that when the colonial people got tired, they would find a dog and a rope, they tied the rope to the dog, and the dog would run and it would turn butter.
Hey, that way they didn't have to work so hard.
It's really important for the parents to be involved. The children worked very hard on the research reports and preparing for this Antiques Roadshow, and they want to share it and celebrate it with their parents. And the parents, of course, are thrilled to see what they've been doing and making this into a really festive occasion for everybody.
I'm amazed they know so much about their objects. One little boy was telling me, I brought in a brick to him. He told me how the whole brick was made back in colonial times. I was totally amazed that they had really researched it and understood what they were doing.
I'm going to tell you something very strange about colonial women. Yes, please. They wore clogs over their shoes to keep them clean. And they only had 3 sets of clothes. One for the summer, one for the winter, and one for Sundays.
Today was really a success because the children seemed very happy when it was over, and I could just sense that this was an important day for them and that they would really remember it for a long time.
Really? And this one was probably on a mansion of some sort, or a big house. Thank you for coming.
Kids have an innate sense of collecting. In 1969, I had every baseball card except one in the 1969 Mets. And finally I got my Jerry Koosman card, and I had a complete set, and that was it.
The money thing is there too, and I think children do respond to that, like, geez, I could find this in grandmom's house and it might be worth a lot of money. So that's that's what I call the bait on the hook. But once you bait that hook with that, then suddenly I think the education creeps in.
Wesley, thanks for coming to the Antique Roadshow. What you brought us is this wonderful uniform and some memorabilia. Tell me a little bit about how you got this.
Well, I was just looking around in my grandma's house for, I think it was like a coloring book or something like that, and I had found this and I thought it was neat, and I knew the Antique Roadshow was coming on.
And this belonged to who? Your great aunt?
My great aunt.
And her name was?
Polly Knoll.
Polly, and we actually have a picture of Polly right here.
Yes.
And who's she with?
She's with her fiancé, which was in France at this time.
And he wrote some of these wonderful love letters to her and sent her little mementos of the time. I think what's so unusual about the World War I uniform that you brought us for the Red Cross, you can see the Red Cross seals, probably about 1915, it's in immaculate, immaculate condition. And she must have really loved this uniform. Women had very few jobs around the turn of the century. And so for her to be a nurse and to have this uniform is just a fantastic piece of memorabilia for us. But you collect military, right?
Yes, I do.
What kinds of things do you collect?
Mostly World War II and World War I. I have one item that's Civil War.
Wow. And as you pointed out, the mail to Polly in this love letter has no stamp on it. And why was that?
Well, the soldiers couldn't get stamps at that time, so they didn't need the stamp, I guess.
Oh, wonderful. Well, do you have any idea what something like this is worth?
Well, maybe 200 or...
Well,
something.
That's a pretty good guess, but you know, my estimation of this, because the condition is so wonderful and it's so pristine, would be worth about $400 to $600.
Wow.
So this has got you a great start on your collection, and it's a great piece of memorabilia of your Aunt Polly. Thank you so much, Wes, for coming in.
The Antiques Roadshow has done an amazing thing. It has taken the mystery and the intimidation out of the world of antiques. It's taken away the elitism, and it's opened it up to the whole world, and it's very exciting.
It's my grandmother's.
The important point is that whether people have multi-million-dollar collections of American furniture or just a baseball card collection, they're all watching the show. And so it's very democratic. People, both spectrum, watch that show, and there's something in it for all of them.
So the bottom of this vase is repaired. This vase would be worth $20,000 to $30,000 if it were in one piece. I think repaired as it is here, it's only worth $1,500.
We are caretakers after all, and if you think that what you have is valueless, either not having much monetary value or not having much historical value, then you tend not to treasure these things. And I think raising the consciousness of the average American that what they may have is actually good is a very positive thing.
I'd say you're probably looking at about $400 to $600 for that. It's very nice.
I really think the main appeal of the Roadshow is what you're seeing is 40 or 50 amazing stories. You're seeing stories about things that people found in their attic or found given to them by their parents. And I think kids, adults, we all love to hear a story.
And you call this your genie bottle? That's a cute name.
Ultimately, the stories are what Antiques Roadshow is all about.
Tell us why you're here today, Laura.
I'm here to get this picture appraised.
Right. And tell me how you found this picture.
Well, I didn't find it. My mother did in the dump. She had to climb into the bin to get it.
At the dump?
Yeah.
And did you help her? Did you climb in and help her?
No, I was very little at the time, so I was locked in the car.
Right. So, who spotted it first?
My mom.
Yeah? And have you done a little research on who the artist is? And
no, we don't know who the artist is. Well, my mom knows, but I don't really know.
Well, I love early pictures, and you have an early American 19th century picture, and that means it probably was made about 1820 to 1830. And I was fascinated by your story about the dump and finding something, because usually people come into the Roadshow and they don't know what they have, but it's been in the family. But you actually found this piece, right?
Yeah, or sometimes they find it from flea markets and stuff like that.
You go to a lot of flea markets?
Yeah, my mom does, me and my mom.
Is that a hobby of yours?
No, not really. We don't really go to that much flea markets. We like to go to the thrift store instead.
Oh, the thrift stores?
Yeah.
Right. Well, is this the most exciting thing that you've ever found?
No.
No? You found other things too?
Yeah.
Well, most portraits that come into the Roadshow or into auction houses or dealers, people know who painted it and they're signed by the artist. But we don't have that help here, do we? There's no signature, is there? So, how do you think we'd identify the age of this picture?
Well, you would look at like the back and the detail of it and the way the person dressed and the couch that she's sitting on and the jewelry she has.
That's exactly right. In fact, that's exactly the way appraisers value and date things.
I know, because I watch this show all the time.
You watch the Antique Roadshow and you watch people putting values on things and dating them. And in fact, this woman is wearing this dark dress and she's sitting on this sofa.
Couch.
That's the back rail of a sofa right there. And that sofa has a mahogany scrolled crest. And those are sofas that were made probably about 1820. You can actually date the picture by the furniture and her jewelry, her hairstyle here. And you know what she's wearing right here?
No.
That's a comb. Underneath that, there's a tortoiseshell comb that she's put in her hair. And even with that little bit of information, we know that this is an American portrait. This is before they had cameras, as you know, so if you wanted a picture of your
you had to have it painted.
Family, you had to have them painted.
I think she wasn't really that rich, because usually the rich people would have all this jewelry on them.
Right, she may have been a middle-class citizen, but she's great, and she has great poise, and even though we don't know who painted this picture, it is a fascinating little snapshot of America in the early 1900s. And given the condition that she's in, she needs a little bit of work and restoration, she probably would bring $2,000 to $3,000 at auction.
Well, that's a lot of money. I thought it was worth like $100, $150.
Well, it is a lot of money, and it's a great find. And keep looking for those antiques.
I will.
And thank you for watching the Roadshow.
You're welcome.
To find out more about our experts and to try your hand at an exciting appraisal game, check out Antiques Roadshow's website at pbs.org.
Chubb is proud to provide major funding for Antiques Roadshow. With more than a century of experience insuring art and antiques, we can protect your family heirlooms and your newly discovered treasures. It's coverage beyond your expectations.
Additional funding for this program is provided by First Union, for an experienced partner through the twists and turns of the financial world. There's the mountain called First Union.
And by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. To order a video cassette of this program, the Collector's Edition boxed set, or the Antiques Roadshow Primer Companion Book, call 1-800-255-9424.
This is PBS.